Okay, so far this mimer is going to explain what the four things are. Kisa Shulchan Vita Meneira. So he basically walks us through what the day should be like, starting with Myra and Krishma Shalamita, the night. Then we come to the morning. In the morning we have Sukkot Zimra. And he's walking us through what should be, how a person in general should approach the whole idea of davening. First with a general thank you to Hashem, then a more specific recognition and appreciation and thank you to Hashem. And we're still through that part. We didn't get up to the Shema yet. So now we're up to on page 134. So again, we're doing the Mamar Naseh and Aliyas Kir Ketana. It's found in my Marim Concentration of the Frierdiker Rebbe, volume 2, volume 1, sorry. And this is the there's no numbers here, but it's the paragraph that begins with V'zehu Shulchan. Now this is explaining the Shulchan. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'apamim v'dvarim. Shulchan of Sukkot Zimra. He explained that Sukkot Zimra literally means psukim of song. What kind of song are we talking about? Singing praises of Hashem, of the greatness of Hashem, how infinite Hashem is, the creation that He created, and all the beauty in creation, and all the wisdom in creation. And by thinking about all that, this helps us develop a feeling of awe for Hashem, feeling of love for Hashem, and we try to think about it and understand it in a way that even my Nefesh Bahamas, the Seichel of my Nefesh Bahamas, which is the lowest level of intellect that we have, should also understand it and should also appreciate it. And that's the goal. So he says, V'zehu, this is what it means, that Shulchan, now he starts explaining the fourth thing. First is Shulchan. Is Psukkot Zimra or Birchas Krishma. What is the main kavanah in this part of the davening up until the Shema? With the avodah the Psukkot Zimra or Birchas Krishma, the avodah of saying all those parts from Hodu, Baruch Shomar, Ashrei, Hallelujah, and then even Birchas Krishma, where we talk about the angels and how they're on fire with love for Hashem. The main thing is, like we learned yesterday, it's about carving out the Nefesh Bahamas, carving it into a keli. Like the analogy he gave of having a block of wood, a log, and I want to make this log into a bowl, into a keli, a vessel. There are two different general stages how to do that. One is a general carving out. I have to carve it out from the log. Now I have a small piece of wood in my hands. And that second time I carve it inside. And I make it a keli that now I should be able to use it for pouring liquid in it or whatever it is. Beis, chakikas, hamuras, the two types of carving out. Bahamas. My Nefesh Bahamas should understand that godliness is also a good thing. Naturally, the Shabbamis only understand and only has an interest and only sees relevance with Gashmis and Chumris, physical, materialistic things. That's what matters. I once had a discussion with someone, and before we started, the reason why I was talking to him is not because he wanted to talk to me, but because his girlfriend was becoming religious, and she wants him to talk to me. Okay, so the poor guy had a whole list of rabbis lined up that he has to talk to. I think I was the first one. So he sits there and says, I want you to know before we start, I'm an atheist, the son of an atheist. And really nothing really matters to me except to know that my car is going to make it to work in the morning, that's all. So he defined what that life is all about. I don't care about Hashem. My father didn't care about Hashem. All I care is about one thing. Will I make it to work? Am I going to make money? And why do I want to make money? You didn't have to explain to me. So you should have all the pleasures of this world. That's what Nefesh Habahamis is by nature. For the Nefesh Habahamis to even have the thought and the idea and the recognition, wait a second, godliness is also something to pursue. That itself is a breakthrough.
What did you say to him?
What?
What did you say to him?
I said, okay, fine, good, let's start. Now, the interesting thing was after that whole speech, which means he doesn't believe in anything spiritual, just everything physical. We were talking about Shabbos, and I explained to him the beauty of Shabbos, the purpose of Shabbos. I explained to him, though, more in a psychological way, how it helps a person be more calm, brings the family together. So he says, that idea I understand and I appreciate, but why does it have to be Saturday? I'd like to do it on a Wednesday. Sometimes I want to do it on a Monday. It have to be only on Saturday. So he said, it's a good question. But the truth is that on Saturday, there's a certain spiritual energy and light in the world. And therefore, it's more conducive to succeed. In the middle of the other days of the week, you won't be able to accomplish it. And he says, that's the first time I heard something that really made sense to me. And I'm thinking, you just told me you don't believe in anything except for your bank and your car and your money. But he doesn't know what he doesn't believe, what he doesn't believe, But this is the definition of Nefesh Habahamis. All I care about is Gashmi. It's not just care. It's not even a care. It means the other things are irrelevant. It has nothing to do with me. It's like you're telling me about a tribe living somewhere in some mountains in Iraq. It has nothing to do with me and my life. That's how Torah, mitzvahs, Yiddishkeit, but mainly godliness. So the purpose of the davening is the Nefesh Habahamis, hello, there's something else that exists. Godliness is also something. Yeah.
So what, like somebody that would come and say, I don't believe it, same speech, I don't believe, but they give charity, they believe in what they would call their ideology, like being a good person, giving, blah, blah, blah. Would you call that Nefesh Habahamis, or even if they think they're not believing in something?
I mean, what else could it be?
I guess so, but I mean, like they're devoted to doing good acts.
Right, it's still Nefesh Habahamis. There are people out there that are clearly declare themselves as atheists, and yet they're very kind people. In fact, that's their justification. I don't need to believe in anything higher. I'm kind to people. I volunteer. I do this. I do that. Yes, we might say that being that he has an neshama, so beneath the surface, he doesn't realize his neshama is motivating him to do this. But consciously, is not connecting it to Hashem.
Yeah.
And that's still considered klipa, except that would be klipa snoga, which means it's klipa. It's about, in other words, what this person's saying is, and that's true, that just like certain people enjoy art, certain people enjoy music, certain people enjoy intellectual, challenging things, and this person says, and I enjoy what gives me pleasure, making somebody happy. That's not godly, that's human. So that's the Nefesh Habahamis. Is it a good thing? Absolutely. Is this the ultimate goal? The answer is no, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about the fact that there's Hashem. Because if a person is going to make their judgment based on what gives me pleasure, then we know that in certain circumstances it will give me pleasure to destroy somebody else's life. And that's what happens with many good people. Not even to bring into the picture, but the in Germany, those animals that did what they did, at the same time that they were murdering Jews, they were punishing people who were cruel to animals, giving them fine for being cruel to an animal. Oh, you really care about being cruel to animals? So sometimes this is the person's defense mechanism justifying that I'm really a good person, even though I kill somebody here because it's all about me. So here I'm going to have compassion. Here I'm going to kill because that'll make me feel better. And that's the end of it. But if it's about Hashem, then I'll do the right thing in the right place in the right time. So there's two general stages, which, by the way, We'll elaborate a little bit more, but you heard about this more than once. Almost came out up during the year a few times. Is that this is the difference between Pesach and Shavuos. Pesach was step one, going out of Mitzrayim, and then Shavuos is step two, now becoming one with Hashem. I can't become one with Hashem unless I let go of Mitzrayim. So I have to let go where I was before and go. So Nefesh Bahamis, it means to step out of its world. Before it was in a world where the only thing that mattered and the only thing that was relevant was materialism and physicality. That's the carving out in general, the first carving out. So that's to be disconnected from where I was. Now, the second thing is to become a vessel for godliness, carving it out from the inside. And how is that done? By being mevatel, which means by removing the form of the Nefesh Bahamis. What's the form? What does that mean? So he's going to explain that there's two parts to the Nefesh Bahamis itself. Even the Nefesh Bahamis that's on fire with a desire for physical, materialistic pleasures, there's two parts to that. One is positive and one is negative. What are the two parts? The Inyan Nefesh Bahamis, we'd have to define the Nefesh Bahamis. It's a force of taiva, of the desire. A koyach was will. In Yiddish, it's a force. And how do you define this force? The way this force is designed is, I want. Like somebody once described his kids, but really it's all kids, that what defines a kid is, I want. What do you want? Depends what. You walk through the bakery, I want a piece of cake. You want a toy store, I want a toy. You see somebody else that's wearing something nice, I want to wear this. I want to play there. I want to go out. I want to go in. Usually it's the opposite of whatever you want. That's what they want. But I want, and whatever comes up, that's what I want. That's the Nefesh Bahamis. Which is, it's on one hand, there's a tremendous force, not easy to hold back. And what is it? It's a force of wanting, that I want things for myself. Like it says, an ox, Hashem created an ox, is very strong and it can produce a lot of, you're using to plow the field, and through this you can produce a lot of the crop in the field. So this is things we've talked about, but don't not usually find it inside. The difference between Nefesh Bahamis and Yetzer Hara. Because generally speaking, it's the same thing. In circles that don't study Chassidus, always use the word Yetzer Hara. It's one of the favorite words, actually. Yetzer Hara. Remember the story? A Jew never walks alone, right? The Yetzer Hara is always with him. But in Chassidus, we always use the word Nefesh Bahamis. But Yetzer Hara is not a fabricated word. It's part of Torah. It's in Gemara. It's in Shulchan Aruch. It's in Sfarim. So what is the difference? Is it exactly the same? Is it something different? Is it just a different terminology? So the answer is it brings out something different, even though they're both talking about the force that makes me desire things that are inappropriate. Hainu shumal b'shas koyach hamasabe b'tziyurim ra. The tayves gufnis umidus rois. Our koyach hamasabe atzmai, but the actual koyach hamasabe in itself, in its own right, so basically, what he's saying is that this force of wanting is not negative, and it's not associated with negativity. It's just a force of a desire. Then how does it get formed? That's where the negative comes in, which means it's just like anything else. You have a piece of dough. The dough itself can be anything. If I make the dough into the shape of a cookie, you have a cookie. If I make the dough into the shape of a challah, you have a challah. I make shape of something else. So the shape and the form, that's Yetzer Hara. The force of wanting, that's the Nefesh Bahamis. Because if you think of it, by calling the neshama with a name Nefesh Bahamis, you stop and think for a second, it's actually not nothing negative, even in the name. The name Yetzer Hara has a negative connotation. Yetzer Hara, bad Yetzer. The name Nefesh Bahamas means an animal soul. Animals, by definition, doesn't mean bad. Person has a cow, he has a horse, he has a dog, he has a cat. It's not bad. They're not human. They don't have human qualities, but they're not bad. Yeah.
You say again, what?
Which is which? Yeah, I'm just wondering if I even put it down in the terms. I think I did not. But let me spell it out. Let me see. Is it here? Yeah, I did it. Number 10. Look here at number 10. I'll tell you which is which. Koyach HaMesabeh, the word Mesabeh has the word taiva in it, which means desire. It's a force of desire. Tzir hara, the word tzir means the shape. And ra means bad. When you shape it in a bad way, that's when this force of wanting becomes extremely negative and toxic. I guess you can actually visualize this in any, let's say you have a car, it's a force, it moves forward. It's a good thing. But if you use it in a negative way, which a person is driving in an irresponsible way, then unfortunately this would bring tragedy but that doesn't mean that a car is a bad thing. It's a good thing. On the contrary, it can get me places very fast. They just had this crazy story in the news. It happened in Israel that they got a report that there's someone driving on the wrong side of the road. By the time the police came, there was already an accident, but the driver was 110 years old, an older person, and he was on the wrong side of the road. So, no one's just because God forbid there's an accident with a car or a plane. This is a tremendous power, a tremendous force. It can get me places in no time. But it depends where's the place that you're going to. So that's what it means, that the Nevesh, the Koyach HaMesabeh, the power of desire is pariv, and the tzir, when it gets shaped and formed, that's where klipa comes in. That's where the negativity comes in. Hainu shomal b'shes Koyach HaMesabeh, when he addresses the Koyach HaMesabeh, the tziyurim roim, in bad forms and shapes, the taivas gufnius, which means he applies it to physical lust and pleasure, a midas rois, or bad midas, that's when it's bad. Avakoyach HaMesabeh asma, this power of desire in itself, einoi ra be'etzem hus, is not bad in its essence, in its own right. So all I need to do is change the direction, change the form, change the shape. Then I could use the same thing for good. I guess a better mashal would even be what the whole world is all up in arms about with the internet. You have internet, which is a very powerful, very, very powerful device, and people are saying it's destroying people's lives, definitely destroying the lives of a lot of frum young people because they get on the internet and get to places where they never would have gotten before. But could you say that in essence, this is a destructive device? The answer is no. On the contrary, there are other people who are able to learn Torah 24/7 with this device. They learn Nigla, they learn Chassidus, they learn Halacha, they watch classes, they communicate with family for who lives at the other end of the world. And people's life has been saved a lot of time through the internet. It's an amazing thing that you can see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. But it depends how you use it. And that's the tzir, that's the form, and that's the shape. In fact, this is one of the big controversies when the Rebbe was using things like radio, then later cable TV. A lot of the other frum communities were up in arms. A radio, in those days, radio, I mean, today, I don't even know if people know there was such thing called a radio. But in those days, radio was the only way you can communicate, far away, to a faraway place. But the radio was used for all sorts of garbage. And therefore, how could you use a vessel that's filled with garbage and use it for something like Torah? The Rebbe wrote a quote actually from this week's Pirkei Avos. This week's Pirkei Avos, at the end of the Perek, is there a siddur for a second? Okay, what it says is that this Kol ma shebara Kodesh Baruch Hu, everything Hashem created, lebara elo lechvoida. He created only to glorify His name. The Rebbe said everything that was created is to glorify his name. So if we ask ourselves the question, okay, the Eibishter created something which was, we never knew that it existed, we just discovered it, that is a power and a force in the world, that you can see and hear what's going on thousands of miles away. Would you think that the Eibishter created it so we should be able to transmit garbage from one end of the world to the other end of the world? Or maybe the Eibishter made it that we should be able to transmit Torah and good things from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Once it's here and we can use it, so we have free choice, we can also use it for negativity. And that's the Rebbe's point, that idea of using technology. I just want to give you a little bit of an idea to what extent. There was someone who used to teach Chassidus in another neighborhood, and a lot of the people who were not Chabad, but they loved Chassidus, they enjoyed Chassidus, they got closer to the Rebbe. And these were Chassidim from other groups. And one time, the teacher said to one of the young men, these are not little kids, these were very people with families, said to one of the young men, you know, you're learning Chassidus, but you never had an opportunity to come to the Rebbe's Farbringen, bring your children. And at that point, he was very close to Chabad and to the Rebbe, and he would appreciate it. So why don't you bring them to? And I'm waiting for an opportunity. I'd like to bring him to a real Farbringen. Say, what's a real Farbringen? The real Farbringen is like on Shabbos, not during the week. It's very hard for me to come for Shabbos. So why is Shabbos more of a real Farbringen than during the week? Because then the Rebbe doesn't speak on a microphone. In other words, a microphone is technology. Technology is science. Science is treif. The Rebbe talking on a microphone, it's a little bit like, so not so pure and holy. So this idea that using a microphone for something like Kedusha to them, or to this person, was like deviating a little bit from what Kedusha is supposed to be about. By the Rebbe, it's just the opposite. Hashem created the microphone for this very purpose. Now that there's a microphone, you can use it for nonsense also. Yeah.
And how come you're not supposed to hear prophets and stuff through a microphone, even when it's not Shabbos?
How come what?
Like you're not really supposed to hear like prophets or like Havdalah or anything through a microphone, even though it's not Shabbos.
That's for a different reason, because it has to be a human voice. And if we understand the technology of how this works, we'll realize that what you hear, even though it sounds exactly like the other person speaking, but it's not a human voice. The voice is created through the technology, it's not the actual human voice that you're hearing. So in certain things where the human voice is not sort of a condition, you can do that with a technology as well. I'm giving you an example. During the summer months, not summer months, but during the 9 days, the Rebbe requested that every person should hear a siyum, which means participate in someone that's going to be finishing a tractate of learning. Where can everybody run, hear a siyum? The Rebbe said to do it on the radio where everybody could hear it. Because in this case, it's not about the human voice. Someone is finishing a tractate. You're listening, you're participating, you're part of it. But when it comes to Havdalah or reading the Megillah, like the Rebbe, said about other things, that if you know the halacha and you know the technology, you'll know that this doesn't work. So that's the reason why not. So the force itself is a very powerful force, and it's in itself we can't say that it's bad, but depending on what you use it for, and that's what Mr. Nefesh Bahamas. That this force, if he starts visualizing physical, materialistic pleasures that he wants, and then his Nefesh Bahamas is on fire with a burning desire to get this pleasure, that pleasure. Some things are permissible, some things are not even permissible. So you think that Nefesh Bahamas is treif, but the truth is it's not treif. The power of desire is good. It's the tzir, the shape. When you shape it in this direction, that's what's not good. So what I need to do is to take away that shape, that form. Then I can actually accomplish that I will take this force, which is a very powerful force, and use it l'tay for good, lifel by, and to perform with it and through it. Val yodai b'tziyurim tevim b'ritzonos ruchnim. I'll actually use it in a good way for spiritual things, davening b'tzibur, b'tfilah, b'kavana. I remember once meeting this older person. He used to be davening in a shul. He would get up every morning. He was a man already in his later years, but he would be the first one in shul, like 5:30 in the morning, opening the door. So he once said to me, he said, before I became so frum, I used to get up 5:30 in the morning, go to this gym, someone would play handball. And he said, I got used to getting up 5:30 in the morning and playing handball. Now I'm getting up 5:30 in the morning, which basically means what he did was his hafta. He turned down what he used before to do something which was negative, but it wasn't anything to do with Hashem, and now he's using it for Torah and for mitzvahs. So therefore we can turn it around. That now, what is it that I want? Good things, spiritual things, davening b'tzibur, davening with kavanah, kvi sitting in the Torah, setting aside time for learning. And this last line is a line that is a little bit of a, I don't know, that question mark, I think was, as you notice, is not in print, it was written, and it came in all the copies, but I still have the question mark exactly, because he finishes off without explaining. Kol zeh toli, what does all this depend on? Shulchan shel adam, on a person's table. And he finishes, Vos v'hatish b'amiz, depending on what kind of table he has. I would expect the next page to elaborate on what that means, but he doesn't. So he leaves it up to us. And I'm not sure what it means. It may mean the pshuta, that what has a lot to do with refining my nefesh habahamis and making it easier for me to direct my nefesh habahamis in the right direction, that it should be formed and shaped in the right way. It would probably have to do with food, because food, kashrus of food, refinement of eating, and all that has a very big part in a person's development spiritually. Unless anyone has another brainstorm what this could mean. We know that foods, let's say first, if you eat something which is not kosher, it not kosher food desensitizes us for spirituality. Eating things that are proper, especially things that are mitzvahs, eating challah on Shabbos, eating a meal on Shabbos, eating matzah on Pesach, eating things, making kiddush on Shabbos, all these things, if it's proper, the way Hashem wants it, then it makes us more refined. But it's still strange that he sort of left us hanging here in the middle, not really explaining, because this is what I'm trying to accomplish in davening. But you're saying the reason why it's called shulchan, because throughout the day, it's the shulchan that has an effect on this refinement.
What's shulchan?
Table. I mean, we know also in Tanya, a lot of emphasis is on food. A lot of these things we don't go by today. Years ago, iskafia, which means to discipline myself, had a lot to do with eating. People discipline themselves. Number one, they fasted a lot. Number two, even when it came to eating, they made sure not to eat foods that had a good taste and had a good flavor. Or if it came to eating, they made sure to push over the time a little bit. Instead of eating my regular time, eat a little bit later, just to sort of break that energy in me that's so obsessed with the food. So today we don't really do that, because when people do that, it ends up weakening them, making them weaker. So we do iskafia in other ways, in speech, and in other kinds of ways that Shemahamis functions. But the idea that food has a very big part in making a person more coarse or making a person more refined. So I guess today it means eating food that is kosher, eating food in a way that I make the bracha before, I make the after bracha after the alamichya, burn nefashis, or benching, And all that has an effect that the food, actually the spark of godliness in the food will actually add, not subtract. And Gemara brought down in Tanya, that when they asked one of the sages of questions, who said, I can't answer yet because I didn't eat this food yet. And he didn't mean to say because I'm hungry, I can't concentrate. It meant, the way Chassidus explains it, eating the food will be elevating those sparks, and that will enhance my ability to understand Torah in a better way. So, could be that's what it means. Or something else. That's why before we eat, there are a lot of halachas, especially with a meal, with bread. We wash our hands before we make a bracha on Netilas Yadayim. We have to make sure to bench. A lot of halachas, how much to eat, and what way to eat. So it looks like that has a big effect on my nefesh habahamis. Am I either feeding it to make it more coarse or make it more refined and more sensitive? Okay. So now we covered two things. We covered the Shema and Ma'ariv at night. We covered the Pesukei Zimra and everything in the morning. Now we're up to davening. We're up to the Shema. Okay. And what is that? This is kisei, the chair. Hine kisei hu kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is the chair. By the way, even in halacha, the difference between Shema and Shemona Esrei is that Shemona Esrei one should say while they're standing, and Shema we read while we're sitting. And in Kabbalah it says that Atzilus, the world of Atzilus, is a world of standing. The world of Bria is the world of Hashem's, where Hashem sits. You do remember, I've seen this many times and heard this many times, that Hashem sitting on his throne. Of course, it's a metaphor, but what is it? What is the metaphor? Hashem's light shining in the world of Bria, that's called sitting on his throne. So the world of Bria is Hashem's kisei, Hashem's chair. What does it do? Shema. The Shema, Dine, kisei hu kriya Shema. Okay, there's a whole part here which is more, every line is another subject in Kabbalah, and that's not going to be easy for us to cover in this class. It will only be helpful in a way, but that's going to be, where is that part? Is it marked off in your copies? No. I guess not. Yeah.
Paying is Krishma?
Which way, what?
Krishma, which part of the paying is that? Is that the blessings?
The Shema?
Which blessings are
That's the that's in the Shema. In the davening we have the Shema. Before Shemona Esrei we say the Shema.
Oh, so it's the Shema itself is Krishma.
Yeah, that's Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema means the reading of Shema.
Oh.
Kriyas in Hebrew means the reading of Shema. Yeah, we're going to skip most of this here. Let's just start. B'nei kisei hu kriya Shema. The Pasha Rishon, the first Pasha of the Shema, is Shema Yisrael, Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad. Shema Yisrael means Ayid der Hert. Every Yid, Hert in Yiddish means hears. Hears. You hear it. Der Hert, which sounds similar, means, what's the word for that in English? That you get it, not just hear it.
Understand.
What?
Listen and understand.
It's a little bit more than understanding. It's like what you heard registers. Sometimes you hear something and people say, why don't you do this? I told you this and this and this. And you say, I didn't realize what you were telling me. I didn't get it. You didn't get the severity of it. I didn't get the beauty of it. Or I didn't get the importance of it. Something you heard it didn't register. And berher means that you not heard it, but it registers, and the ramifications are that it gets you to do something. If you hear something and it doesn't move you in any way, it means you heard it, but you didn't really get it. And what is it that Hashem wants us to hear? As Havaya Elokeinu is Havaya Echad. That Hashem Elokeinu, the Hashem Echad. What does all that mean? So now we're going to go into the words. And it's, like I said, it's very complicated. You can try to look at it and you'll see that you can trust me that it's complicated. So therefore, I'm going to skip this part from here until the bottom. And we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the bottom. The line that begins with the word betachlis. The middle line says the hine. That's where we're going to start. The Hinik Siv, it says, it's 1:15 already. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll have to continue with Hashem tomorrow. By the way, on Friday, we're going to start preparing for Shavuos. Probably take a little break. I feel like to finish the Mimer by then. We'll take a little break and we'll prepare Hasidus on Shavuos. Okay. Tzlach Rabba, everybody.